Hello and welcome back to another game review, a little mini let's play as we're doing it on the channel. The idea of this is I'm going to look into a couple of new games. You guys decide if you like what you're seeing, and if we both agree that the game is good, then we're proceeding with full playthrough, and these might be the first episodes of such. Today on our menu would be Glorious Companions. So Glorious Companions is a game that has been developed by a small indie company called Ancient Forge. And Ancient Forge is not necessarily known, at least it wasn't for me. They did a couple of other simulation games. The Tenants is one, Blockbusters, which appears to be kind of a movie game, and Hotel Galactic, which is a fantasy hotel simulator. So for them, it's a bit out of the ordinary that they would go into a company RPG game like Battle Brothers or War Tales. And that's really what we're going to look at and comparing it to. Glorious Companions just has been released. It was an early access, has been released beginning of this year, and we're going to see if it is any good. I, for fair disclaimer, number one, got a full version of it, kind of review it and showcase it. I will still give you my unbiased opinion whilst we're going through the game. And secondly, I already started a little bit because the game is not very self-explanatory. So let's take a look at what we're doing. The whole thing is the game seems to be covered in a overarching, shall we call it, main storyline, which you will see in a bit. We can select two different factions. One are the Valrene, which are the humans, and the other one are the Bears, which are the Lizardmen. That reminded me a bit of Divinity Original Sins 2. It's interesting if your only other race is Lizard folk race, but it is really whatever. Let's shortly get into each of the factions. They do have distinct classes, and really I felt, without going too deep into the system, that the classes represent a lot of pseudo complexity. By just looking at this, you could get the impression that the classes are really different, but they are oftentimes more similar than they are different, and you will see that in the game. It's not a criticism, it's just sometimes a game showcases a little bit more complexity than it really delivers. So the humans do have the Trapper, which in a nutshell can be arranged or a physical character. Focuses on life drain, and there is one special ability called Captain's Call. So your main character not allowed to die. You can lose whoever else, but the moment that the main character is dead, that will basically conclude the scenario for you. And the main character therefore gets an ancestral power, and that is unique for each of the classes. So the Trapper gets an ancestral power where every ancestral power has a passive and an active effect. Needed to understand that as well. So the passive effect essentially means he always life drains for around 40% of the damage that they dealt. And then once every 4 turns, he has a 3-tile large area where everybody gets a 64% life drain. So that's their special ability. We do have the Blade Dancer as the second potential class. Really similar in a way that each of them have individual skills. I'm not going to review them, but if you review them in detail, many of them overlap. So although this here looks completely unique, the reality is it is not that unique. The Blade Dancer really is a melee or dexterity based character, moves in fast, hits a lot of times, and the special Captain's Call ability, if we make that character our captain, is basically receives around 70% less damage with the first hit, and then can once every 5 turns create a smaller zone, 3 tiles, where everybody has increased speed and better chance to hit. Then we got the Brawler, which is the human frontline tank. It's a lot of tank abilities. Passive effect does have a massive bonus against any form of ranged attack, and then on use once every 3 rounds can basically make everybody counter attack with physical attacks. Then we finally do have the Engineer, which is kind of a ranged caster type of character with grenades and such. And the Captain Call here is at the beginning of the turn, heals for 70% of the damage they received last turn, and can cast a smaller 2-tile radius where no one can die for a single round once every 5 rounds. So really that's what you get if you play humans. If you play lizards, you do have the Acolyte, which is in a nutshell a healer with a bit of utility on top of that. So here you can see it, and in many cases healing throughout different stages, and then a few buffing and dispelling mechanics. Does get a replenishment of Vengeance, which is basically mana regeneration as a passive effect, and then can cast an area that regenerates everybody. We're having the Scarling, which does have a passive ability that receives excuse me for that receives less damage for the first hit, and then if they activate it once every 4 turns, no one can do attacks of opportunity, so you can pretty freely surround enemies. We got the Warlord, which always when he parries deals damage to the defender, and has an ability that basically reduces the action economy cost for everybody in his area, the melee action economy, to 75% of what it would be, to basically once every 3 rounds, no 4 rounds, allow to overpower the enemy. And then finally we got the Shamaness or Shaman, which is really the only true caster with crowd control and a lot of damage spells, and basically her base attacks deal extra magical damage, and then on top of it he has an ability that lets everybody finish their cooldowns. Now you can only have one Captain's Call. You really need to think about what you want to do. I assume the classes play a little bit different. I played 2 different classes and they felt more the same than they felt different. The Captain's Call can really change the way that you're playing the game. For this particular run, I would like to go with the Engineer, because I personally think, from my knowledge of RPGs, that the ability to make yourself completely invulnerable, even if it is a small radius, is absolutely fantastic. Plus, this character does have a couple of neat extra abilities. Let's shortly go through this through the system here. Relatively straightforward. Strength is how well you can parry, how well you can hit, and how much melee damage you deal. Agility is how well you can dodge and how accurate your range attacks are. So already put a lot of things into those 2 skills. Defense is basically shield block chance and damage reduction, as well as passive hit point regeneration between fights. Mind is arcane damage reduction, ability to resist spells. Swiftness is the AP costs for every step, and action points are your action points. So basically she could 4 tiles with her action points, and that's really it. Resources is mana, health is what it says. So if we're playing with that character, I don't want the captain to be a frontliner. My perspective, there is an inherent problem with letting the captain be in the front line, specifically if that's your most valuable unit. So what we're going to do is we're going to go with a couple of special traits. There are really just 4 sets that you can select from. And one set that I find very, very good is starts with the learning point. These are the special abilities that you can use, as well as increases your agility. So that's for ranged attacks and dodging. So that's what we're going to do. Now let's see, how should we look like that. But that is my personal preference to have heavily pierced women, but I think this is also nice as a combatant. And we're calling her, let's call her Regina, the engineer of doom. So we call our company Blast Incorporated because, you know, got a couple of flashbangs. And let's see what kind of banner we're using. Oh man. We're going to use a nice little full banner color. Can we go with a white banner, or does it need to be a colorful? You know, black and white isn't the worst. Let's go with that. Blast Incorporated is a invalid name. Alright, then how about Bottle Team?
No one really cared about the past of this land. No one asked any questions when the land we've inhabited long ago turned out to be littered with enormous, monumental statues of unknown origin. No one, until the past spoke to us. With deep echoing voices, the statues we've called the Narlans started rumbling, like the sound of an avalanche coming to devour us all. Some even say they noticed their heads moving. But that is impossible, surely. Alas, even as a group of devoted scholars studied them for centuries, there were no answers as to what they are, what purpose they serve, and the most important question, are they a threat to us? All of these questions were beyond the interests of our leaders, including our illustrious king. He would rather focus on his own political gains than be bothered with the angry mob demanding action be taken against the statues. But with each day the mob grew bigger, and the king had to do something to silence it. He called for a tournament to be staged to select a group of heroes who would be up to the task of solving the Narlan riddle. He sent his heralds to the far corners of the realm, commanding them to visit every town, every inn, and every household with news of the tournament. If the quest was to succeed, he needed the best of the best, or at least the most reckless.
Alright, narrator, but you have much pressing matters to attend to. Trading day today, and some of the villagers, including your sister and her husband, decided to head to town. However, they forgot to take the money. You must catch them on your way. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about the game other than its pretty sizable load times. So there are points of interest, almost like with the King's Bounty, the Princess's game. which by the way is an excellent game. And you can basically explore that entire overland map, and things will happen, encounters. You notice a wagon standing on the road, something is not right. Suddenly you hear a scream of your brother-in-law, Argon, and noticed him trying to fend off wolves. All right, Argon, we're helping you. Let's go, baby. Let's go. All right, Argon is there at the beginning. We can place characters, and let's talk a little bit about what we see. So characters do have weapons equipped. We can currently not see that yet, but basically Regina here does have 4 javelins, and that's really all she has. Once that's used, she's useless in combat. And we got an injured Argon, who is a trapper as a class. You can see a couple of hit points are missing. Resource is really any special resource. He personally does have a shield, which helps him to carry a shield in melee. But he also has a resource called Piercing Thrust, which allows him to stab through 2. So what we're going to do is we are... Second, need to update the key bindings afterwards. We can move forward, and you can see once you move forward, basically can select the direction that you're facing. And then we're using our special attack. We get the typical percent chance. And before we're doing that, you can see the wolf does have a couple of auras. So the pack leader does have a regeneration aura. That means that guy will regenerate hit points every single round. And that's pretty much it. Those are the only auras. We're going to hit both of them, and you can see immediately a double kill. Fantastic. Regina moves up. There is no such thing as readying an action. So if you can't get close enough, tough luck. We're being attacked. The yellow damage that you're seeing is basically the durability of the shield. Once that is done, that's pretty much it. Regina moves up, slings her spear, and then her brother-in-law tries his best and whiffs it 2 times. 7 durability of the shield, 5 hit points. And we're trying another javelin throw. There we go. XP is shared. We are lower level, that's why we got a little bit more experience. And this is nice. That's actually a good thing that they designed. You will be able to have party resources, such as bandages, potions, and so on and so forth. And basically, they are reusable items, but only once after every combat. So we're now having 3 bandages, and basically what bandages do is they heal 50% of the missing hit points. So the first time it heals quite a few, 15 hit points, then it only 8, and then it heals 4. But that system, if you have enough bandages, you can heal up a pretty portion of the damage that has been dealt to you. And not surprisingly, we have now gotten a new character. So let's start with that really quickly.
As the wolves fall, you get the time to inspect the bodies lying on the ground and notice a familiar face. Your sister's. Holding in her tears, Argon told you of a group of thugs who attacked them on their way to town. There was no warning, no reason why they drew their blades, just slaughter. Then the smell of blood lured the wolves in. But the time for grief will come later. Now is the time to track down these murderers before the trail gets cold and bring them to justice, by law's hand or your own.
Good. So he says, southwest, we need to hurry. Good. Let's shortly talk about a couple of things. So, this is your mortal teamwork kind of company overview. Regina is the boss. There are a couple of things such as mood. The higher the mood, the better the XP, how hungry they are, and just how much they cost per week. As you can imagine, that cost will go up as they level. So there are a couple of things. Leadership, which increases the size of your party. You can see the game assumes at some point you're running around with 20 people. Then trading, which is basically better prices for bartering. An increased spawn zone, which would tactics, intelligence, gives more information about enemies. First aid, which is the chance of not dying from fatal wounds. Spoil, which basically is the amount of loot that you're getting. Wayfaring, which allows you to quicker walk on the map. Constitution, for building, speed and settlements. And surgery, which is passive health regeneration on the map. So, since I've played a little bit of similar games, the amount of space that you have, very precious. So leadership is fantastic ability. Other than that, things that stand out for me personally is, instead of increasing the spoils, I would increase trading, because that will allow you always gain better prices. Tactics seems valid, because bigger spawn zones means you can put characters in better position. Intelligence is purely for people that don't know the game, so us at the moment. But as you played the game, I assume that will rapidly decrease. First aid, second most important ability after leadership in my perspective, because not permanently losing a character seems absolutely fantastic. And then other than that, I think wayfaring might be helpful. Surgery is a little bit redundant, in the sense that the constitution itself, if you bump it up, will increase the regeneration. So we're going for leadership first, and then first aid as well. And let's see where this is going to take us, maybe a few points into trading. Which brings us to the second part, which is the character design. So we've already talked a little bit about that. We've now gotten Argon, our trapper, who is a frontliner with a spear and a shield. So that's basically his shtick. The cool part about the system here is you can reduce a couple of the abilities and then reshift them. So if you find a weapon later or want to reuse your character for something else, you don't need to throw away the entire character. You can just kind of mix and match it. Equally, we do have a inventory and a couple of strong items that we're starting with. One that seems super good is Chronal's shield. So we're just giving that to our main character. No idea why you're starting, as potentially kind of a game promo item that they released at some point. So we're starting with this javelin, 8 attack, 8 action points to attack for around 21 damage. Argon is not that lucky. He uses a short spear that has a similar damage but can't be thrown. Unfortunately, you can't really take another weapon, if I'm not mistaken. Or, oh, well, you can. Okay, never mind. So we have throwing weapons, and then we're basically pulling out the hatchet. Good. See, learned something already. So here are the 3 bandages that I talked about. We want to get a little bit more over time. And we are pretty much good to go. Argon starts with fur armor. Armor generally reduces the damage that you're taking at the expense of less AP and also less dodge. So that's really all we need to know at this point. We got a couple of points for the level up for Regina. And the question that I'm asking myself is, if Regina is really just going with javelins, maybe we give her kind of a shield bonus The other option is we're going into more dodge. We're most certainly not going to skill blunt weapons, so let's do the shielding defense. That's a good first learning point. You remember that we started with one extra learning point, and that's basically the shielding mastery. So that's well invested right there. So we're starting with action points. I personally like action points. Our tiers are requiring 8 action points. So having 18 means we can throw 2 times, theoretically speaking. And since we're throwing, we're going to increase agility. And what you've seen is basically everything costs 1 learning point. Then at some point it goes up to 2, to 3, and so on, which really encourages you at the beginning to level a little bit of everything. So much so that you're not too focused on only one aspect. Given that this is our main character, we're going to get a little bit more health. You know what? Might as well just also use defense. I think that's a good start for the character. Don't have any armor at the moment, but we have a nice little shield. Okay, cool. So let's move on. The next observable thing is it is difficult, really difficult on the map to kind of orientate yourself. The areas that are interesting are not immediately visible. So this here is one of many camps I will show you on the map. Basically started here, moved all the way to the hunter's hut. This is where the bandits are. And that is pretty much the entirety of the continent. The lizards are starting over here. We're starting over there. All right. So every location does have quests. This quest here, for instance, wants us to forest, but recently a horde of wolves made it in there. Could you see what happened? Oh, of course, we're taking that quest. Extra XP and some money that we could take for that. We could get a few more items, such as a better shield. You can see each shield has a certain amount of hit points. Buckler, for instance, 15, round shield 60, and has a damage reduction if you block it. We could use that. There are a couple of other things that I would like to first buy. One of which would be a resurrection potion, because that will allow our characters to basically come back from the dead after the fight. So that's actually quite helpful. And that's the only thing that we're buying. We're down to 300 gold. So we're as broke can be. These are the points of interest that I talked about, so we can select that. Not going into that mystical well yet. We're instead going for the bandits. So bandits, they were a really, really tough fight the last time. So I just played a tiny bit, and I don't want to make the same mistakes. Last time I just really went in and almost lost the fight. They were really, really tough. So this, on the other hand, is not so tough. A couple of wolves. I think we even got a quest for those wolves. So here's the part which again creates a bit of a negative vibe for the game as far as I can tell. It appears to be, relatively speaking, repetitive. So there are a lot of overworld encounters. That's good. I like it. However, these encounters sometimes are just not meaningful. And while something like the Divinity Original Sins found a really clever system with that, where there's just a limited amount of overworld encounters and then some random encounters, it appears that in this game There are just a lot of encounters, period. So, let's start with... We can't thrust. Fortune. Good. One hit. Attempt to attack. Not a hit. Critical strike. That's actually quite nice. And... there we go. Nice little hit. Alright, we're doing very well. Listen, our shields are super good at this point. I learned from the last time that shields are great. So we can basically heal up here. 0 damage taken. Thanks to the bandages. And we got another level up. The second, I was just in my train of thought about potentially negative parts. So a lot of the altercations seem meaningless. It's a lot of grinding. And then on top of it, you're kind of ending up with long loading screens, which is never a fun thing, right? So before we're continuing here, let's do this. A couple more hit points. And a bit more strength. Seems legit. Character is pretty well-rounded actually. 80 hit points is fantastic, so he can take a punch. That's good. I like it. And you can always skill down if you want to. We haven't gotten any powerful abilities that require resources yet, but soon we're going to get some, because the engineer is also a healer. So we're going to get that. In the meantime, we can just do all of the other abilities. Good. Here we got a couple of valuables that we find. And we're fighting yet another pack. So kind of what I was saying originally, that there are a lot of engagements where you need to kill the enemies, and sometimes they're really not as strong as you are. The reason why I'm doing this is I want to make sure that we are well leveled because of the bandits that I made earlier. I'm already trying to speed up the combat a bit. You can see 2 more wolves. On the tactical layer, I would question just, shall we say, the depth of the decision making. Oh wow, that was a great hit. The depth of the decision making, there is a very limited influence of the positioning. I don't want to smack talk the game already too much, but I can see a couple of the problems there are very, very obvious. I mean, you're going to enjoy those fights the first day 3-4 times, but then it gradually decreases. And it seems to me that there is just not that much tactical depth in there. You're just basically running into the enemy, and if you're stronger than the enemy, then that means you're just going to curb stomp them, and vice versa. So it's not like you can win an engagement. Or let me put it this way: if you are out performing the enemy or out leveled the enemy, then it's very, very difficult for you to even lose. Anyways, that's the first big town before we go to the to the bandits. I wanted to show you the tavern, one of my personal favorites. So we could get a brawler, which is the frontliner. It has unfortunately a sluggish agility, which we don't like. There are worse things. but very similar to Battle Brothers. You don't want to hire people that are not an asset for you. You got to look at overall the hiring fee. So how much do they want? This guy is expensive and does have a negative trait. And in a perfect world, you would have 3 positive traits and a cheap mercenary. It seems to not necessarily correlate. Some of them are just more expensive. This here, for instance, Blade Dancer, 25% less experience. It's really not good. Good. We got another quest that we can take. Thank you. And we can sell a couple of items on the flea market. You can see there is plenty of stuff that we could buy here, but I would like to keep the money as much as possible because I would really like to hire someone, which may come in handy a little bit later. So, at the moment, it's just the 2 of us, and I want to fight the bandits. So we're going to do exactly that. Good. Argon doesn't want to inform the city guards. He wants to charge in and solve the problem by himself. So we're going to see whether or not we're going to be successful. Like I said, the last time it was a very, very, very close fight. This time it seems they do have ranged attacks. And a couple of melee attacks. Don't like it. But we do have shields, so we're good. Moving in. We're moving to here. 50-50. That was no bueno. Alright, not sure if you can shoot into melee. The answer apparently is yes, you can. You just witnessed the first attack of opportunity. If you're basically moving in melee range, you're provoking attacks of opportunity. Luckily for us, as you can see, we're regenerating quite a bit of the health. So, try that again. Alright, almost got him. Like it. I like the passive regeneration of the engineer, combined with a shield that's really, really powerful. Good. How can I switch weapons? I've never done that. Wait. There you go. Okay. Well, we're set. There's another bonus attack because this guy has a ranged weapon as well. Might not look like it, but he's carrying javelins. Oh, critical hit. Listen, I promise you the last time it was substantially more difficult than that. Look at that, we got ourselves a really nice short bow. That is great. And a long battle knife. Good as well. And last time I got a companion here, and that's basically as far as I played the game. So we're reaching the very point where I started the review. Alright, as the dust settles after the battle falls, you notice Argon is looking around frenetically. Not here. Who? A murderer. He's not here. Look through the bandit's belonging, you discover a letter with a broken seal. The letter out loud. By the order of Grace, King Rodar of the House Helior, first of his name, ruler of the Western Lowlands, Eastern Lowlands, Misty Swamps, Lush Forest, Icy Tundra, Fiery Volcano, the Great Uniter. His Grace summons all valiant warriors to the realm to participate at the Grand Tournament. Okay, let it be known, the Grace needs people of determination. Okay, signed the Grand Chancellor. Free of their past, whatever that might be. No wonder they thought they had nothing to lose. So we conclude the guy who killed our sister must be heading to the capital, partake in that tournament. That's where we will find him. All right. We hear something and we say, come out with your hands in the air or you will die. The young female Scar emerges behind the bush. She's beyond terrified. And she introduces herself as Ravari. What are you doing there? Just passing by. One of them, let's kill her. Explain yourself. I'm an acolyte of the goddess of life. They hired me so I can heal the wounds after whatever they were doing. Argon, our brother, said, don't play dumb. You must have known they were criminals. And Ravari said, well, I suppose that's moral flexibility. Alright, so that's how we get involved. Ravari said, I could work for you instead of killing you. Having a medic could heal us after the tournament would be good. Yes, healing after the tournament, of course. You can join us. Good. With that, we got our next companion. So we want Regina in the back line, we want the healer in the mid, and Argon in the front. Cool. Now, that's the battle crew. She's level 4. She does have just making sure, which is a skill that heals wounds. Fantastic. Regina will get a skill that heals wounds as well, but can only be used on trappers, brawlers, and engineers, so that's humans only. Ravari doesn't have that limitation. With her, I would like... Mind is important, so we can't really compromise that too much. But I would like a little bit more action points, if I'm honest. And a few more resources. That way we're good. She also has shield mastery, which means we will need to find something for her to do. She could alternatively head throwing weapons. The shield mastery isn't that bad per se. How's her agility? Her agility is actually quite nice. So, instead of this broken dagger, let's give her a proper dagger. And her main weapon could be a bow. I like that idea. So she's going to be our backline and heals whenever necessary. As a character, she will be quick enough to move around, high swiftness, as well as very nimble. So she's actually an excellent character. I like her. Argon equally is a character. So that's the base team that we have gotten. Now, let's talk about a couple of other things. Number one, leadership increase, so that we have a few more rooms here, and let's do one in trading, level 4. Cool. So one more thing is the camping. Camping is a nice little mini game in itself. You can put people to certain tasks. One is training, which just gives you experience, and with that level. So we're just letting 2 people train. There's first aid. There is cooking, which will basically increase the happiness. And happiness means, in a nutshell, more experience. Hunting, which, if you have enough agility, will give you meat that you can use to heal. And then prayer, or blood rituals if you're playing the lizard man, which requires a certain minimum in mind and health points. And just like blood rituals, you can not only get blessings but also curses. Then there is crafting and enchanting. Honestly speaking, haven't really looked into that a lot. And you can see we would go up to 90% of our energy, and we're essentially just resting for 8 hours. That's really it. I have no idea if time has any other impact other than kind of refreshing what kind of mercenary is available. But that's really it. I think that's the end of first episode. I will do a bit of grinding and get a fourth mercenary, and then we're continuing from here with the second episode. Let's go, boys.